Ladies and gentlemen, this is not Gangnam Style. I talk about making videos and we take a trip into North Korea. All this and more coming up next. The QiRanger podcast starts now. My friends, welcome once more to the QiRanger podcast. My name is Steve Miller, the internet's QiRanger. I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel on iTunes and, of course, QiRanger.com. This week we begin with some disturbing news from Gangnam. And I have to say, this really blew my mind. Suffering from depression, a high school dropout student went into a classroom in an elementary school and stabbed 6 students, leaving 1 in critical condition. Now, this happened in Bangbei, which is right in the heart of Gangnam, where I go all the time. And if you've watched my Costco video, it's in between Gangnam Station and Yeongjae Station. It's that little area right there. And what happened was this 18-year-old surname of Kim. He went into this private elementary school at about 11:50 a.m. and started stabbing students in the classroom. He stabbed 3 male students, including a 10-year-old boy with the last name of Jang, and 3 other female students in the span of 5 minutes. That is crazy. Korea is often thought of as a very safe place, and that's very evident by the number of people who go out drinking time and time again in the evening hours and walk home without a thought in the world. I know that when I have been out with friends at different company functions, you go home at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning through a lot of what most people would think about as bad areas of town, and there's no worry in the world. But to think about the educational system here in Korea, where you have CCTVs everywhere, where there's usually a police presence someplace in the near vicinity, that an individual could walk into the school that didn't belong there. They could walk into a classroom that he shouldn't even be allowed to gain access to, and to stab people in just a few minutes is just terrifying. The young man is still being cared for. The person who, of course, did this is in police custody, but it's just terrible, terrible news, and not a lot of information as far as why this took place. But I really hope that an incident like this really acts as a call to action, that educators and administrators really need to take a look at the larger picture of campus security. At my university, anyone can walk on campus, even though there are guards stationed at the main gates to kind of maintain the flow of traffic, because there are only a few parking spots on campus proper. But inside the buildings, it's free reign. And granted, it's an educational institution and the country is safe, but there's no reason why an 18-year-old should be allowed on a school campus, an elementary school campus, during the day. When I was in the United States, I participated in a vocational program for seniors. And after I graduated, I was often invited back to speak to the class about my experiences in the program and to provide some insight into the education system and to the business culture that they would be graduating into. And the procedure for that was always stop off at the main desk, sign in, not only provide my information, but also check in with the administrators there and to let them know which classes or which instructors I was going to be seeing that day, and then to wear a visitor pass. That kind of policy needs to take place here. There's no reason for this thing to ever happen again. In some other news, this was broken by Yonhap News Agency on the 26th of September. that 2/3 of South Koreans are disappointed with the way that Lee Myung-bak is handling North Korea. They are saying that the hawkish policies, the strict policies towards North Korea, just don't seem to be working. And this was a straw poll of 1,200 people conducted by the Institute for Peace and Unification at Seoul's National University. A total of 65.7% said that the policies just don't work. And all three of the major candidates for presidency have all said that they are going to change the way that they deal with North Korea and probably rely heavily on the multinational talks that have pretty much stalled since Lee Myung-bak went into office. Now, I'm not really sure that's the best solution of dealing with North Korea because, like I've said so many times, I sound like a broken record. So many times, North Korea wants stuff. And the way that they get stuff is that North Korea will do something to agitate South Korea, to agitate the international community, and then that international community will come to North Korea and say, please, don't do that. If you stop what you're doing, we'll give you stuff. And that's the cycle. I really believe that if the international community wants to curb the actions in North Korea, what they need to do is simply ignore them. That they need to enact some sort of trade and other kind of economic embargo on the country, and then not give in to the demands. I really believe that continuously treating North Korea like a child and giving in to their poor behavior isn't going to work in the long run. I really hope that as time develops, that the economic stability in the region changes so that North Korea can have an economy that's on par with the South and the two can finally equalize relations. That is my long-term goal. I would love to see a unified Korea some point down the line. It's not going to happen soon, but it will be interesting to see what takes place when the new president steps into office. In some other regional news, Busan Kevin actually reported on this. The Japanese and Taiwanese ships shot water cannons at each other. Unfortunately, because of World War II, there are a lot of territorial disputes on very small islets in this region. And this one actually had me really, really concerned. Now, over in the East China Sea, the efforts over these little small islets is really getting out of control. About 40 Taiwanese fishing boats and 12 patrol boats from Japan got together and then exchanged water cannon fire. The Taiwanese ships pull back after being fired upon, and this is really Taiwan's first foray into these uninhabited islets. And there's Senkaku Islands or Diaoyu Islands, depending on which country you're referring to. But this is really a huge step in escalation. These matters really need to be handled diplomatically. And Japan is occupying the islands. They're administering the islands. I would consider them Japanese territory just because they have effective control. Now, a few weeks ago, when we were discussing Dokdo Takashima and the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, on what they look at for territorial disputes, they look at proximity, they look at acquiescence, they look at effective control. And the proximity of Senkaku and Diaoyu, for the most part, equal distance. It's right in the middle of this disputed area, actually it's an international area. And let's say that's a draw. Neither party can claim that. But Japan has effective control. They have the ability to hold the islands, to defend it. And I really think that that is the defining characteristic of what territory means. That if you're able to hold on to the land, you effectively control it. it's your soil. And I don't want to see this getting escalated to the point where China or Taiwan sends military craft into the area and there's an actual exchange of fire. That would be a blow to the entire region, because then it's just going to open a floodgate of activity on all the disputed lands. And no one really wants to see that. It really needs to be settled diplomatically and without incident. So hopefully this is the last it happens between these two nations. In some other news, and I found this was quite comically accurate. This was really, really cool. I mentioned a lot how I disagree with Korean law, especially when it comes to what I think are light slaps on the wrist to a lot of different crimes here. But this time, Korea gets it right. And Korea gets it right the best way possible. So this gentleman, Ok-ju-an, Mr. An, he was going to do some development here in Korea and managed to get $1.3 million in funds. And he absconds with it. He goes to the United States to start up a food truck service called Galbi. And he did quite well. And then he recently came back to Korea and was arrested. Seems he didn't really do his homework. Now, for this kind of embezzlement or frauding your investors, there is a statute of limitations of 7 years. So if you embezzle the money, if you steal the money, and you're not brought to justice within 7 years, you are pardoned. You're given a free rein. You're given a clean slate. There's nothing anyone can do to you, except if you leave the country. It seems that Korean law is very specific in this. If you steal the money, if you embezzle the money, and then you leave Korea, your 7-year clock doesn't start. So even though he took the money, waited the 7 years, but because he was in the United States, the clock never started. So as soon as he got back to Korea, boom, he was arrested. And that is brilliant, because if you're stealing that kind of money, when you promise to take care of a project, when you go out and you elicit funds from investors to say, I'm going to build this building, you need to follow through on it. You don't take the money and run. So I have to give props to the Korean legal system for this one. That was awesome. That was just brilliant. And some other news, and this specifically speaks to Korea and Japanese relations. At the United Nations, the Korean delegates once more brought up the issue of Japan's colonial rule here in Korea. And they again were citing that Japan really isn't fessing up to what they view as war crimes, that again, Dokdo is Korean territory. And they said something that I thought was very interesting. And let me quote here. When the Japanese government claims Dokdo is their territory, Korean people take it as another attempt to invade our country. So that's the Korean sentiment, and I hope the Japanese government understands this. Now, in 1993, the Japanese government did issue a formal apology over the Korean sex slaves or comfort women, but because of the actions, they don't really act contrite about it. And that's one of the main nuggets, the main things that a lot of Koreans have with the Japanese government. They may have issued an apology, but they aren't acting contrite. They aren't acting remorseful. There's no genuineness seen on behalf of the government. And Kim goes on to say that the way that the Japanese government is behaving is in sharp contrast with how Germany acted after the end of the Second World War. And if Japan doesn't get it, meaning why Korea is still upset, then he's not sure that Japan can get respect from other neighboring countries. And I think that's very representative of how a lot of people feel. is that, especially with Prime Minister Noda going out recently saying there were no comfort women, and other prominent Japanese officials going to shrines where war crimes or war criminals are interned, it's just bringing up a lot of bad blood, a lot of bad ideas. But again, I think the main issue with Koreans and a lot of people in Southeast Asia as it refers to Japan comes to the notion that actions do speak louder than words. So if you say that you're sorry and you don't act contrite, the words are empty. And unfortunately, that's the perception of the Japanese government. So there you have it. That is the news this week, nice and short. And it's time to move on to the Content Rewind. Ladies and gentlemen, this week on the Content Rewind, we have some fun things to talk about. And first up is, of course, the Tuesday and Friday videos. I'm talking about Myeongdong Kalguksu and, of course, Myeongdong Cathedral. These places are fantastic, and I really want to stress that the noodles at Myeongdong Kalguksu are delicious, and you are served up a huge bowl. Now, a single serving is probably, well, it's enough for me. I eat the whole thing, but I think Joe ate 3/4 of it, and our friend Alex only ate half of it. I mean, the bowls are massive. They come with tons of noodles. The broth is fantastic. There's a few dumplings inside. Then we ordered the plate of mandu on top of that. It was just a meal and a half, and it was, in every sense of the word, brilliant. It was awesome. I loved it. It was just sitting here and remembering the taste of the noodles was just brilliant. Now, to get to this restaurant, it's right behind Forever 21. So if you go to Myeongdong and you know where Forever 21 is, on the back side of the building. But it's very popular. And if you go during lunchtime, it is insanely busy. It's not uncommon to see a line out the door. And even once you get inside, there's a line going to the upstairs area and a line going to the downstairs dining area. And it's crazy. And it's one of the few places that I think it's really great when you buy or when you order your food. A lot of times they ask you to pay right away, because that way when you're done you can get up and leave, and then the next group can come in after they bust your table. Fantastic food. It really is fantastic. Knife cut noodles. There's only 3 or 4 things on the menu, so you just go in, I want the knife cut noodles, I want the mandu, or I want the other stew that they have there. Boom, you're done. And it's not that complicated. And there's pictures, so if you don't speak Korean, you can just point and there you have it. The one thing that I wasn't able to show because I couldn't get a good camera angle on it, and I thought this is really, really interesting. They have a table on the downstairs floor, and it's a double width table. So if you're sitting at, like, let's say McDonald's or something, and you have one of those 2-seater chairs, it's a little bit wider than that. But what they do, and I thought this was so cool, is in the middle of the table, there is a divider that can be dropped into the table so that if you're a singleton, you can sit there, put the barrier up so you can have your lunch without making eye contact with the person on the other side of the table. It reminds me of a test-taking booth from elementary school, in fact. But I thought that was really, really cool because I'd never seen that in any restaurant before. Usually singletons are up at a dining bar, up next to the griddle, but this was a proper table with a divider. I thought that was brilliant. From there, we just walked a few hundred meters to Myeongdong Cathedral. Beautiful Gothic architecture, one of the oldest Catholic churches here in Seoul. It is beautiful. Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception, the cornerstone laid by one of the final kings of the Joseon and Daehan Empire. Just really, really beautiful. The one thing that I thought was interesting about the cathedral was when you go to a Catholic church, one of the tenets of Catholicism is confession. And I've always seen confessionals somewhere in the main sanctuary. And walking throughout Myeongdong Cathedral, I didn't see any, and I thought that was really interesting. The other item that I thought was really, really cool about this was there are the Stations of the Cross, and typically they're usually, say, engravings or paintings, and these were intricate wood carvings, almost an Art Deco kind of amorphic. It was really, really interesting to see that. Just a cool place to hang out for a few minutes. You can go in and take some pictures, you can go in and take some video, but they really don't want it to be a massive tourist area. They do perform Latin rites there, and there's services all throughout the week, and it's open. It's really, really cool. It's undergoing a major restoration area in terms of parking out in front, so there's a lot of construction going on. But still, if you're in Myeongdong and you're doing your shopping, because a lot of people who come to Korea, they love to do the shopping in Myeongdong, even though I think it's one of the most expensive places in Korea to shop. But make sure you check out these two places. A lot of fun, a great meal, and of course, a little history that is completely 180 degrees away from a lot of the temples that you see here in Korea. Some other things. On Wednesday, I put up a video podcast of my stint on Olive Show, You Can Cook with Fabian. So you can watch me make Korean kimchi. You can see me make bosam and, of course, kimchi jjigae. It was a lot of fun. I talked about doing the show a few weeks ago, so I'm very happy to be able to present that video podcast extra for you guys. And on Wednesday evening, I was on 2.5 Oyajis, Victor and Hiko Simon's weekly talk, conversation, Google Hangout that's live. That episode will be up on the Give Me a Flake Man channel. All of these links are in the show notes, so go ahead and check those out. This week, of course, since I did the Myeongdong Cathedral and I did the Myeongdong Kalguksu episodes, they weren't part of a proper series. Those two videos were standalones. And the reason why was because there are 5 weeks, 5 full weeks here in October. So the premise of my videos this season, this semester, is to do a 4-part series. So I decided to do that this week, and then on Tuesday we start off the new series for October, and these will all be a little bit different, all here local in the Suwon area, my favorite place in all of Korea to take people to, the Suwon Fortress, the Suwon Hangung, a lot of different things in the area. I've showcased bits and pieces of it a few times over the last 4 years. I'm really jazzed about being able to go back again and show the world how great this place is. And these videos will be on my page, but instead of going to QiRanger.com to read about the extra content that's not in the video, those pieces will be up on the Korea blog, the actual blog maintained by the Korean government. So you'll be able to check those out as well. So there you have it. Not a lot this week, but a lot of fun stuff coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time once more for the Quintessential Quartet, and this week I will be speaking about making videos, specifically making videos for YouTube. And this week's topic was inspired by Mr. Josh Hill, J Hill Life, because he sent me a message asking about videos and making videos better, and it really got me thinking about why I make videos and what I think people need to really wrap their heads around when they decide to make YouTube videos. So here are 4 pieces of information that I think you need to know. Number 1, it takes a lot of time. Now, when you look at a lot of popular YouTubers, you look at their videos and they are incredibly polished. They're edited perfectly. They have the right titles. They have the right music. And this is something that doesn't happen when you first turn on the camera. This is the manifestation of years of practice, whether years of practice in front of a camera or years of practice on stage, on television, on radio, public speaking. It's years of experience doing their craft and then adding a single new element to it. So if you're just beginning out the process of making videos, don't expect to have that kind of product. My very first video on YouTube, I opened up my MacBook Pro, I sat in my kitchen, had a cup of coffee, and literally the video was this short. Hi, how are you doing? I did my laundry, I'm having some coffee, I'm gonna go for a run, and then go to Costco. Have a great day. And that was the end of my video. 30 seconds tops. That was my video. And now look at what I produce. I go out of my way to try to find interesting topics and edit them together with music and tell stories. But if I was trying to do what I do now, back in 2007, 2008, I would have been lost. I did not have the skill set. I did not know what I want to achieve. And even if you look at some of the travel videos back in 2008, they are markedly different from what I produce now. And over time, I was able to develop the skill set. So if you're going to make videos on YouTube, realize that it takes time. It's like anything else you do in life. Practice makes perfect. Number 2, don't expect a lot of viewers right away. And this is even more so now. Back in the day, it was really easy to find people on YouTube. Even popular YouTubers like Michael Buckley have come out and said that because of the new algorithms, because of the large number of content creators, it's just so difficult to find content these days. And think about this. Every single minute, 72 hours of video is uploaded to YouTube. So in the space of 1 hour, the length of this podcast, 6 months of video have been uploaded. 6 months. That is just incredible. So if you put up your video, chances are if you just upload it, not a lot of people are going to see it. So how do you get people to watch your video? Well, a couple of great strategies is, of course, to share it. Share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, any forums that you participate in, share them there. Make sure it's relevant to whatever you're promoting to other people. Make the content or share the content to groups that want to see that type of content. The worst thing you can do is if you have subscribers on YouTube, and this is my opinion, but it's echoed by many others. If I'm subscribed to you, your video will show up in my subscription box. I do go through the subscription list on YouTube and I do see it. Don't send an email to someone on your subscription list saying, hey, this is a video that's just out. It's redundant. It's a little irritating. I find it extremely irritating. But by all means, do promote it on Twitter because sometimes videos do get lost in the mix. So I always actually will find a video on Twitter a lot of times and click on it right there on my mobile device to watch it. And a perfect example of this recently is Tomoko, Jim's wife, Molly's wife, burned herself with an iron this past weekend. And I was doing some work and I saw the tweet come through and I thought it was his new Things That Suck video, but it wasn't. It was actually a real life thing. And right then and there, I watched the video. So if you connect with people on Twitter, if you connect with people on Facebook and promote your videos there, then they have a larger audience, a larger niche where people can then see your video. And from there, then hopefully they will share it, retweet it, share it on Facebook and so forth to really promote your video. And I really think that's probably one of the best organic ways to have videos be seen by a larger audience. The other thing you can do is, of course, video responses. So if your video, if someone like does a tag question game. Make a video response. That way people get to see your face, they get to see your style, and they get to know you. If you make a video about topic X and someone else on YouTube has a similar topic, link the video there. That way you're introducing more content to more people. It's a great way to get more video views. Number 3, watch your videos. And I mean that. Watch your own video. When I give public speaking instructions, I always tell people, do your presentation with a video camera and watch your presentation back. If you don't like your presentation, chances are your audience won't like your presentation. So if you make a video and then you come back and you watch your video and you're left with a feeling that, man, that was boring. I don't like that. I wish this was over. Chances are your audience is going to feel the same way, and they're going to click away really quick. They may even click the unsubscribe button. So make video content that you want to watch. Make video content that you enjoy. Because number 4 is definitely the most important. Have fun. Making videos for most people is a creative outlet. It's a hobby. And if it's not fun, there's no point in doing it. I make videos because I enjoy telling stories. I enjoy sharing knowledge. It's something I enjoy doing. That's why I do it. If I didn't enjoy doing it, I wouldn't be doing it. So make the videos that give you joy, because that will transcend the lens. If you're having a lot of fun, your viewers will see that you're having a lot of fun, and that will be contagious. That will draw them in. So have fun with it. Make videos that you want to watch, because chances are your audience will be some reflection of yourself, and they will also enjoy it. So there you have it. That is the Quintessential Quartet this week. Josh, thanks for the great inspiration for giving me this week's topic. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time once more to set course for adventure. And I am joined on the line today, all the way from Romania, with Cezar Dumitru. And he is going to take us to someplace really close to where I am. Welcome to the podcast, Cezar.
Thank you very much.
So, where are you going to take us on our adventure today?
Just a couple of kilometers away of you in North Korea.
That's right. North Korea, ladies and gentlemen. I have had the pleasure of stepping across the DMZ line on a South Korean tour of the JSA, but Cezar has actually been in North Korea. So, my friend, what can you tell us about the Hermit Kingdom to the north?
The hurricane?
Hermit Kingdom.
Hermit Kingdom, yeah. Well, basically, I think I told you before, I've been to 88 countries of the world, including my own. And I think North Korea was one of the most fascinating ones, because I haven't seen anything like that anywhere else. It is a country which is completely disconnected. I mean, if tomorrow they're going to have a big scientific breakthrough and they will be able to transfer it to the moon, no one would realize. It's a country which is completely isolated. The TV sets of the normal people, they cannot change the channels. The TV sets are just set from the factory line on the 2 channels the North Korean television has. So they are completely disconnected.
So wait a second. There's 2 state-run television channels, but. Right. But so North Koreans can't freely choose which one of those 2 channels to watch. They just that's it.
These are the only 2 they can choose. I mean, they have some buttons. They don't have a remote control as anyone else has.
Oh,
so
wow.
They have 2 buttons. They can push button 1 and they watch the first channel, and button 2 to watch the second channel. Actually, the second channel doesn't broadcast a lot. I think it broadcasts only in weekends or something.
Oh, okay. Reminds me of growing up when I only had 3 channels when I was growing up, but that was in the United States. So what can you tell us about the country itself in addition to that? That just blows my mind that number one, there's that much TV program that they can have. What else can you tell us about North Korea?
let's start a little bit with the basics. I need the people to understand why exists this North Korea and South Korea. It is one Korea at the end of the day. It is one Korean people. They used to have a glorious kingdom up to 1910, when the Japanese Empire, who started initially to ask for vassality, etc., finally destroyed the kingdom and conquered it. From 1910 to 1945, so it is like 35 years, Korea was part of Japan. It became free only after World War II. But in that moment, the Soviet troops came from north, while the Americans landed in south, coming, I think, from Philippines or the other base.
Philippines.
And at a certain moment, one American officer, I don't exactly remember his name, proposed to have this delimitation line, which was around the 38th parallel, where the troops to stop, Americans to stop south of it, while the Russians, the Soviets, to stop north of it. And this is since then something like the delimitation line. The Soviets imposed their regime in north, which was led by Kim Sung-il. His name in Romania is known as Kim Ir-sen, but Kim Ir-sen is something like a Russianite name. While in south, the Americans put some, I don't remember the name of the guy, another Korean. The two countries started to evolve separately. In 1950, it erupted the famous Korean War, which lasted like 3 years. Obviously, the South Koreans claimed that the North attacked first. Going to North, they're going to tell me that the South attacked first. Anyway, it doesn't matter who started. Both of them really wanted to attack then. North Koreans initially beat South Koreans. They almost conquered the whole peninsula. Americans landed in Incheon, which is now the site of the biggest airport of South Korea. They beat the North Koreans. Then 1 million Chinese volunteers intervened. These volunteers basically were farmers who were keeping their tanks and their warplanes somewhere in their backyard, I guess. In 1953, it was signed the truce, and since then it is this truce enforced. I mean, there is no peace sign, so theoretically both North Korea and South Korea are in a state of war.
Correct.
The two countries evolved parallelly. In South, after a couple of military dictatorships, you know much better, the political regime evolved towards democracy, and now I think it's one of the richest countries in the world. North Korea remains something like frozen, completely locked up, and developing according to the so-called Yuche doctrine, which was developed by the first president, Kim Sung-il, which in just a sentence says that the people should help themselves and do everything by themselves, which was something like an autarkic doctrine. So basically we have a completely closed country where everything they consume is produced locally. I don't think there are significant imports except of food, because from time to time they have some problems with the food supply. And I think that's all.
Yeah, and it's a unique culture is where, just recently, within a week or two, they've okayed women to wear trousers, and pizza is now okay to be eaten in the country. So it's slowly coming up to what many would call modern standards, especially with Kim Jong-un taking the reins and trying to build some of that loyalty base. But going into North Korea, what are some of the ways of getting there?
Well, basically independent travel is unheard of. I think even North Koreans themselves cannot travel independently. So basically you cannot go by yourself. You need to book it with a travel agency. There are not so many travel agencies which actually have connection with North Korea. I traveled by a British-owned, Beijing-based travel agency, which is called Koryo Tours. Apparently, it is the first travel agency who ever sent foreign tourists to North Korea, something back in 90s. Right now, there are a couple of them, and I think there will be more, because I feel a little bit of starting of a kind of liberalization, at least in some aspects.
Well, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. There's a lot more internet flowing into the country, and you see things like a North Korean version of Gangnam Style and some of the other internet popular culture items getting in there. Now,
it doesn't get into Korea. Korea has their own internet. I think it's called Cornet, which doesn't have connections with abroad.
Yeah. Okay. There are certainly ways that some things are getting in there. Now, up until recently, U.S. citizens were not able to go into North Korea, but that's changed, correct?
Yeah, that's changed. For sure, they were allowed during the so-called Arirang season. Arirang, which is also known as Mass Games Show, which is the largest show on the earth, was a show which was staged on the main stadium, which, by the way, is the largest in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
In which around between 120,000 and 150,000 people performed. I've been to this show. It is just blowing. I mean, when I entered the stadium, I was just like almost crashing when I saw so many people performing. I was a little bit late. My plane was late from Beijing, so I went straight from the airport to the show.
Mm.
But it was incredible. Apparently, they stopped it. I think these days, on September 27, is the last show of Arirang, and no one exactly knows what will happen next year. It will be an upgrade one. Maybe Kim Jong-un will say that it's too much a waste of time of people. No one really knows, but that show was just incredible.
No, I bet. Now, as far
I was coming from, so my trip there was in 2008. I was coming from the Beijing Olympics, and everyone said wow to the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympics. Think that Pyongyang staged something very similar almost each 3 days.
Wow.
And this sometime in summer. And this was the season when the Americans went in. So they were allowed to go in.
Okay.
We were probably 40 to 50 tourists in the moment I visited, and there were, I think, 2 or 3 of them Americans.
Okay. So getting in, you fly into Pyongyang, and then the tours. Where do they put you up in terms of hotels for foreigners there to travel about?
Back then, there were only 2 hotels which were open to foreigners. One was called Koryo, which is something like downtown near the railway station.
Okay.
Which was built when the South Korean president visited North Korea. I think that was around 2000. And it has something like 2 blocks which are connected by a bridge, something like, let's say, the Petronas Tower in Kuala Lumpur, and on top it's a rotating restaurant. This rotating restaurant, it's very big, it's a fashion for the luxury hotels in North Korea. Everyone has it. So this is one. And the other one, actually, the one I stayed in, it's called Myeongdong, I think I pronounced it correctly, okay. Which is on an island in Pyongyang. It's crossed by a big river. I don't remember the name. It's British Korean. But in the middle of the river is this island where you have this hotel which has 30 or 40 floors. Mm-hmm. It has a golf course. I don't know if Tiger Woods designed it, but for sure Kim Jong-il did it. And it's the place where the Pyongyang International Film Festival takes place. So it's something like an oasis, which is separated from the local inhabitants, where the foreigners can play, let's say, freely.
Okay. So
I stayed in this Myeongdong, which has everything. I mean, it has bars, it has casino, it has hard currency shop, sauna, disco, whatever you want.
What kind of what was the quality of the food at the hotel?
It was very good. I mean, the quality of the food everywhere we went, it was very good. There were some special restaurants where only high-ranking North Koreans and foreigners can eat, and we had plenty of food. I think they could feed the whole neighborhood of Pyongyang with so much food.
Oh, wow.
And I mean,
okay.
You imagine that all these tours are all-inclusive. So you basically have hotel, 3 times per day food, guide, driver, transportation, entrance to different places, except the Arirang show. You had to pay an extra. And I also wanted to go to circus, and I paid a little bit extra.
Okay. Now, as far as the guides, You said you always have to travel with a tour group. Now, how big or how small are these groups?
You can go up to one person.
Up to as little as one person can be a group.
Yeah, we were two. So it was okay. Choreo tours and the other agencies are organizing something like fixed date tours, which are basically cheaper because they fly there. I don't know, 10, 12, 20. I don't know how big the size of the group usually.
Mm-hmm.
But because these dates didn't really fit my agenda, I know that you can travel it, let's call it independently, or I don't know, small groups, how they used to call it. So basically, even I met people which were only one. So it was only one, but it was treated like a group. So he had two guides and one driver, the same with the two of us.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, the price was a little bit higher, but not hugely higher.
Okay, that's fair enough. I know that when we travel sometimes around the world, we get a couple of guides and drivers as well. So what are some of the, you mentioned the audio on games, what are some of the other things you did while you're on tour?
Well, probably one of the most interesting and the things I was really looking forward was to visit the demilitarized zone.
Mm-hmm. So what is the North Korean tour like?
So basically, we start in the morning. DMZ is not so far away from Pyongyang as well. So in the morning, we went on our van. Actually, had a van.
Mm-hmm.
We took the highway. They have some pretty good highways. Okay, they are empty. I think in 200 kilometers or how many kilometers are up to the border, I've seen no more than 5 cars. And you go there. Initially, they show you a big maquette of how the things look like in the area. They start to tell you the whole story about the war. You go there then into a kind of let's call it kiosk or barrack. It is the place where actually the truce was signed.
Mm.
So the place where truce was signed is now in the North Korean side, not in the South Korean side.
Right.
The story says that the Americans wanted to sign somewhere, to sign it immediately in the middle of nowhere, just to bring a couple of tables and some chairs, but the North Koreans rejected. They said that this is a historical moment when America declares itself to be beaten. They consider the end of the war as their victory and the American defeat.
Right.
So they said, give us 24 hours and we're going to build something properly to sign it. So in 24 hours, they built this big barrack where they put some chairs and some tables and some flags, and where this truce was signed. So basically, you enter this place, you find whatever was left from then, like the table, like the chair, like the flags, etc., etc. But all around on the walls, you see lots of pictures from the war, basically with American servicemen surrounding, with crashed helicopters and all these kind of things, and obviously about their great North Korean victory.
Oh, of course.
Afterwards, you go to this place which if you've been to the South Korean tour, definitely you've seen, where there are the two big buildings, one in front of each other, with something like 6 barracks which are painted in blue, which actually cross the border. So in this barracks is the place where the North Korean officials meet South Korean officials in case there are some problems. In the day I went there, then this was a wonderful day of August. It was very sunny and a very nice day. It was something like a touristical day. There were a lot of groups on the North Korean side and a lot of groups on the South Korean side.
Okay.
So we entered alternatively. So we entered that certain barrack. In that moment, 2 soldiers stopped us. Something like blocked the South Korean door. Think that there are 2 doors. So it's just a barrack, a table, some chairs, some flags, North Korean on one side, and the flags of the country who fought on the American side in the Korean War on the other side, like
right.
Norway, Thailand, Philippines, etc., etc.
Right. It's pretty much the same thing if you were to experience a tour on this side. As far as other places that you went to in North Korea, where did you go?
Actually, I have a question to you because I haven't been to the South Korean side. Can you take pictures?
There are specific areas where you can take pictures and certain areas that they tell you not to. So if you're inside those blue conference buildings, you can walk around the tables to the North Korean side, but just like as you mentioned, there's a guard in front of the North Korean door, so you can't go outside. The bus passes along that conference row, and you can take pictures at that time. There's a little observation deck overlooking the area, and you can take pictures there, but those are the only areas, and the guards will tell you, do not take your camera out. If we see that motion, we're going to assume you have a gun, and we will shoot you, or they will shoot you.
Okay. No, here on the North Korean side was pretty liberal. At a certain moment, we had a guide which was dressed like a high-ranking officer. I don't know what rank he had. We nicknamed him the general. At a certain moment, the general ordered us, fire at will.
Fire at will. All right, so where else did you see while you're there?
In North Korea?
Yes.
Well, basically, another big place I've been is the former presidential palace. Just a small parenthesis for our listeners. North Korea had 3 presidents, actually 3 leaders. They have only 1 president, but 3 leaders in their almost 70 years of history, I think.
Right.
So the first one, Kim Sung-il, which was coming with the Soviet troops, was the president from 1945, and although he died in 1994, he is still the president of the country. His son became leader, actually chairman of the military council. This is the official position. So his father, although that continued to be the president until last year when he died obviously, and now it's the third one, the son of Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, which is the third in the row, so creating a real dynasty.
Right.
Well, the eternal president of North Korea had obviously a big palace as his office, and in the moment when he died in 1994, the authorities decided to transform this palace into mausoleum. Think that, God forbid, Obama dies today, and the White House is becoming a mausoleum for him. I mean, it looks a little bit like very weird, but this is what it happened. So basically, we visited this huge palace together with, I think, other thousands of North Koreans, his body is preserved, like Lenin in Moscow, or like Mao in Beijing, or like Uncle Ho in Hanoi. However, I've seen all the other 3 characters, but you can get extremely close to Kim. He's not under any, any glass or any...
Oh, wow.
He's just lying on kind of a bed, let's say, and you get like probably 2 meters away of him. Obviously, you need to bow 3 times in the moment when you go around him. So basically, you enter the direction his legs are pointing, you go around up to his head, and then you are out. So in the moment when you enter, you bow. When you are near his body, you bow. And in the moment when you are next to his head, you bow. But you can see him, I don't know, like someone you see in the trolley bus. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, our time is just about up, Cesar, but I would like to thank you very much for joining us this week on the podcast. My guest this week has been Cesar Dumitru from Imperator Travel. You can get all of his information by clicking on the link to go over to the show notes. You can find his blog. It's at imperatortravel.ro, and you can follow him on Twitter at Imperator Travel. Cesar, thank you once again for joining me this week.
You are welcome. Thank you very much as well for inviting me.
And ladies and gentlemen, that will just about do it for this week's slightly abbreviated podcast. I would like to thank once more Cesar Dumitru from Imperator Travel in Romania for joining us this week on Set Course for Adventure. You, of course, can find all of his information in the show notes. Next week, we will have some more stories for you, but don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram just by finding QiRanger on those sites. You can also send me questions to questions@QiRanger.com, or if you have any feedback about the podcast, you can send that to podcast@QiRanger.com. So until next time, remember to always be true to yourself and don't forget to be awesome.